Sometimes you've got to do something completely trivial to get yourself out of a bad mood.
After using my disc sander in my last video to brute force a scarf joint onto some hardwood, it got me wondering how one was even meant to change the sanding pad on the wheel. I had a little look in the manual and I enjoyed the exploded diagram, which looks like it was drawn by me on a post-it note. And I discovered that replacing the disc was more than halfway to complete disassembly anyway. This presented me with an opportunity. I'm of the belief that red is better deployed in a workshop to mean one of two things, either danger or stop. And so having the heaviest, least moving part of this machine be the red bit seemed a bit silly. And besides, red just isn't really my colour. With the whole sander disassembled, I improvised a little spray booth in the corner of the shop. I thought this nice arrow sticker was worth saving, so I peeled it off and put it aside. Then decided that if I wasn't going to sand a key into this cast iron structure, then the least I could do would be to give it a wipe down with some acetone. An offcut of twin and earth proved to be ample to give me something to hang the sander body from in my improvised spray booth.
I think that'll work.
So I put my respirator on and got shaking. I'm a big fan of these simple spray can triggers. I wouldn't be surprised if my use of them embarrasses my friends in the graffiti culture. But it is said that accessibility helps everyone. I find I'm much less inclined to rush a job when I use the trigger grip, and that gets me much better results overall. This job looked like it went alright, so I left it to dry overnight. I was relieved the next morning to find it was still hanging out happily. So I got onto reassembly, starting with the feet, then the brake, then the motor, and then the disc. Which I gave a little clean up to before I applied the new pad. The guard looked like it was a bit bent out of shape, so I tried to tap it back into something flatter, and decided it could do with its own new embellishment while I was pursuing this silly project. I brought it inside and scanned it in for a size reference. Then traced up this post-it note from a couple of weeks ago. Ready to make my plotter cutter sing. Weeding the cutting is always the best bit. And after a little cake break, I got it stuck to the guard plate. And while I was at it, I made a replacement for the original arrow sticker I liked as well. Then the last thing was to add the serial number label, which, because it had lost a bit of its stick, I gave it a little blast with some ancient spray mount, which worked well enough for me to do an awfully wonky job reapplying it. With the sanding discs re-looking having gone so well, I decided I wouldn't stop there, and I would also respray the other red thing that lives out on the workshop worktop semi-permanently. This little heater has proven to be a noble hand-me-down.
Thanks, Dad.
But I figured as well as not really being my colour,
I could do a lot worse than removing an unintentional advert for the American Defence Industrial Complex from my workshop.
I didn't have to go as far with dismantling this little heater. Once I got a couple of screws out and popped the knobs off, the whole shell that I wanted to repaint came away from the rest of it with minimal complaint. I gave the shell a good cleaning, removing the remains of what I assumed was a price sticker, and cleaned all the random splatters of paint from it too. And then it was ready for its own trip into the spray booth. The dog and I went for a walk while the paint dried. And when I got back, I figured blowing out all the dust would be a good idea before I reassembled it. It went back together really quickly and a new status quo has been established in my workshop.
If the respray job on the sander was half-assed, then that makes the job on the heater quarter-assed, but I am really pleased with both. The jobs were completely inessential, but spending a couple of afternoon hours on them was a good way of getting myself out of a sulk. Thanks for sticking with this and watching this video.